Hey my friends, this is Late Boy Scout and welcome to part 1 of this video series where I'm going to recap my 2-day shotgun course that I took down at Front Sight. I previously did a recap of a 4-day course, a 4-day handgun course, reference that for some information about Front Sight that I may not cover in this 2-day recap. Now I'm going to try to keep this as short as I can. I want to leave out some details and expound on some of the more interesting points, some of the more detailed points in standalone videos that you're going to be finding on my channel over the next, I don't know, several months probably. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. If you want to see some tactical shotgun tactics, maneuvers, ideas, things that I learned during this 2-day course. Right now, I'm going to start off by just kind of giving you a recap of what the experience was like. By now you may have already seen the Front Sight Gear Check or Front Sight EDC video that I did with my friend Crockett20. He's one of the guys I went down to Front Sight with. Now, that was, like I said, just kind of a gear check showing you what I took and why, and kind of a little bit of a description of how I used it. I won't cover very much of that in this series of videos. I will, however, go off my notes here to talk about all the things that we did and discussed during that 2-day shotgun course. Now, the first thing you're going to do for any course at Front Sight is show up early and check in your gear. That is, you go in, you check in yourself, showing some ID, telling them what course you're there for, they assign you to a range, then you have your gear checked out. Your shotgun, in this case, will go and get checked out by somebody on a certain line. You bring your ammo, you make sure all that checks out. They've got standards for what they want you to use, no steel shot, for instance. A handful of other things like that. They want to make sure that your ammo is not going to damage any of their targets or be dangerous for anybody else in the class, which makes a lot of sense. After that, you get a little bit of an orientation in regards to safety. You do sign a safety form, releasing Front Sight of any liability. In that particular orientation, and we were talking specifically about shotguns, and they mentioned that the shotgun ranges are 100% cold. Now, some of the handgun ranges, depending on what you're doing, you'll sometimes get to go back to your seat with a loaded gun. But generally speaking, Front Sight is 100% cold. You walk around with an unloaded gun. When you leave the line using the shotgun course, you actually rack your guns. You put them on a rack with a bunch of other shotguns, and you leave them there through the duration of the class period. After we left that orientation class, we actually moved out to our range, where we met our range masters. We sat down, we got a little bit of instruction about some of the rules of the range, some of the range commands, the fact that safety is everybody's responsibility, and the command stop can be used by anybody at any time whenever you feel like something dangerous is happening and you need it to stop. Stop, of course, means freeze in place. That's everybody. Freeze in place, wait for the situation to be rectified, whatever it is, and wait for further commands from your range instructors. Freeze in place also means get your finger off the trigger. We also discussed range coaching and how every student at Front Sight is both a student and a coach. We split the line up into sort of the first relay and the second relay. The second relay gets right behind the first relay, coaches them and watches them for safety, and then you swap places and do the same thing to the person that was just coaching you. Now, the courses at Front Sight try to cover all the bases, all the most remedial students up to some of the more advanced ones. So they even started with things as simple as shotgun parts and anatomy, really, talking about which end is your muzzle, which end is the stock, what are the different parts of the stock. Some pretty important things like that for folks who maybe are picking their shotgun up for the first time or shooting it for the first time in this class. We talked about sling positions, ways that you can sling your shotgun, whether it be a sort of a one-point harness, or maybe having your muzzle up like I have mine right now, wearing it muzzle down, the different strengths related to those, and why you might want to choose one over the other. Along with that, we talked about how to get your gun into a position where you're ready to fire from the sling position, and the reverse of that, getting it slinged back onto your shoulder after you're done firing. Our range masters pointed out something that I found really helpful, and that is indexing shells, how to properly take them, whether it's out of a pouch, a pocket, or some other sort of holder, how to properly index that in your fingers in order to insert it into your shotgun in the most fast and most effective manner. I'll demonstrate that further in a standalone video, but I just wanted to point out that that's something we learned there. We talked about administrative reloads, administrative weapon manipulation. Administration, by the way, when we talk about administrative, what we're talking about is manipulating your weapon or reloading your weapon in a situation where you're not in a fight. Okay, that's the administrative side of things. And when we're at the range, that's all we deal with is sort of the administrative side of things. In a tactical sense, in an actual fight, it's totally different. But we wanted to cover that administrative side so that we could all be safe and efficient with it while we're there on the line. Our instructors talked about the Weaver stance and the aggressive forward lean, which is something they push at front sight. They like you to have whatever your strong side is or your weak side. Your strong side foot should be a few inches behind your weak side foot, or your support side foot, I should say. And they should be in line with each other, but your body should be rotated forward. And so I'm kind of setting myself up in kind of a Weaver stance right now. Feet sort of shoulder width apart. And again, facing this direction while I'm facing that direction, preparing to fire in that direction. And the forward lean basically means I get my shotgun out, and this is completely unloaded, by the way, and I'm leaning out with it towards my target. Along with that, we talked about the 3 points of contact with your gun. There's your support hand, there's your firing hand, there's your cheek. Well, that's actually the fourth. The third would be your shoulder pocket. If you need to know how to find your shoulder pocket, I'll explain that in another video. But essentially, it's right around here. And you want to put the toe of your shotgun stock, the toe is right here, into that shoulder pocket. Firing hand there, support hand up here, and your cheek weld down on there with that aggressive forward lean, ready to take your shots. So those are your 4 points of contact with your shotgun, and when you have those nice and solid, you can actually make your shots. Next, we talked about the 3 readies. There are 3 ready positions that they teach at front sight. This is ready, this is high ready, and then field ready is basically down here, where you can't see the shotgun because it's off camera. I'll do this in another standalone video and explain what these 3 readies are, what they're meant for. But anytime you engage from one of these readies, field ready or high ready, is a matter of punching the shotgun out and then pulling it back into that shoulder pocket to take aim. When you are in the low, or that is to say the ready position, it's really just a matter of raising it up to your cheek and taking your shot. We discussed sight alignment for shotguns. In the case of my Remington 870, I've got a little bead on the very end of that shotgun, and that is it. So lining up the sights pretty much means that you get your eye focused on that front bead, and you get that centered on top of this receiver right here. And that is pretty much how you line up your sights with a bead shotgun. Now, some of the other ones, ghost ring or other types of different sights, they discussed how you line those up as well. However you line up your sights, though, the next important thing is the 3 secrets of accuracy. And those 3 secrets are sight alignment, sight picture, and trigger control. Sight alignment, once again, being getting your sights lined up with each other. So in the case of my bead, I've got to make sure that it is lined up at the center of this receiver. In the case of some other sight, they line up in different ways. And then to talk about sight picture, once you have those sights aligned with your gun, on your gun, you've got to actually get that lined up with whatever your target is. If you are my target, I am now aligned with you. I am now having a sight picture that puts you at the end of my bead, and that's proper sight picture. Then trigger control, again, pretty simple. It's just a matter of always pressing, not yanking, not pulling. You press that trigger, they showed you exactly where to hold on to it. You press that trigger, and that's how you get good accuracy. We discussed after-action drills for shotgun. In any kind of a gunfight you might be in, movement is really important. Also, breaking tunnel vision, making sure that you're aware of your surroundings after whatever happened. So you take your 2 shots, or 1 shot, or whatever it might be. You do a quick scan, looking around, you get your eyes back on your target for a couple seconds, and the purpose of that is my target down? Do I need to put it down again? After that, you do a full and complete scan, looking all around you, before you decide that your world is safe again. Throughout the day, through all these things we were learning, we went in between our little classroom, which was in a little shaded area, but outside, and out to the actual firing line, where we practiced some of these things. Bringing our shotgun from a sling position into a ready-to-fire position, practicing those 3 readies, practicing our sight pictures, practicing our trigger press and so forth, practicing our after-action drills, all that stuff. We did all that dry for the better part of the first morning before we went to lunch. As is pretty much always the case with any front sight course you take, when you go to lunch, you also go to a lecture. Since I'm a returning front sight student, that lecture was really supplementary. So when I got back to the range, what we then worked on was practice of presentation, shooting after action drills from ready, from high ready, from field ready. Then of course we went and discussed the zones that you want to get your shots into. Now front sight has a target that they have designed, a paper target they created, and they distinguish what your A zone, your B zone, your C zone is on that target. I'll try to go into more detail about what those different zones are in probably a standalone video. But it was important right then for us to understand what those different zones were, because it was about time to start patterning our shotguns. We got out some double-aught buck, we went up to some paper targets from different yards. I think it was 7, 15, and 25. We checked out, what kind of patterns our buckshot made to see how tight it got from 7 yards, how it spread out at 15, and how big it was at 25. It's good to understand that about whatever load you're going to choose, and we kind of learned right at that point how to pattern our shotguns. At this point we went on to discuss stoppages and jams, issues, problems you might have with your gun. A type 1 being basically you're empty. That's basically what a type 1 is. You've run out of ammo. To solve that one is basically a rack and roll, and I'll demonstrate that real quick. I'll do this in a standalone video as well, but it's essentially you take your shot, click, no bang, you rack and roll at the same time, send it back, and before you take one more shot. So that's basically what a type 1 is and how to deal with it. A type 2 with a shotgun is a failure to eject. So what that means is you've got a shell that's probably lodged there in your chamber, okay, down in here. It's not like lodged as in it's stuck down in there. That would be a type 3, but a type 2 means it's in there and it just hasn't come out, so you can't rack forward again because it doesn't want to let you. So that is basically a rack and roll again, just like a type 1. Now a type 3 on the other hand is actually a failure to extract, so that means you've actually got a shell lodged in the chamber that doesn't want to come out. And I'm not talking about, it's sort of open and in this area but just didn't fall out. Maybe it's stuck when you went to pull it closed and it got lodged in there like that, kind of sticking out. That's type 2. A type 3 is when you actually have it stuck down in the chamber and it won't pull itself back out. So to solve that, it's basically another rack roll, but then hit your action release and rack it again till it comes out. If it's not coming out, you're going to have to do some magic where you're slamming it down on your knee, sometimes down on the ground, whatever it takes to get that thing to actually extract. Now once we finished discussing all those different types of malfunctions, we went and practiced them all dry with our partners there on the range. Relay 1, Relay 2 behind us coaching. One of the last things we talked about for the day was emergency reloads. What that essentially means is you've gone dry, so here we are empty, we are off safe, click, rack roll, click, still not working, open it up, you see that there's nothing in there, and this is when you begin some port loading, some emergency reloading. So from wherever my shell carrier is, I begin to load it into the chamber, rack it forward, fire, eject, load another one directly into the chamber from the port, fire, and continue until you're out of the fight. Or until you're out of ammo. Now after learning how to do that, we went to the line and practiced some of that. So we shot our shotguns dry, once again with that click, rack roll, click, port load, bang, port load, bang. We did that until, well, we had a lot of fun. The instructors were calling it out so fast and we were running through all those port loadings so fast. It got kind of crazy and we had a lot of fun. Before the day ended, our instructors emphasized that whatever practice we do, whatever dry practice we do, we need to be sure that we're nice and safe, okay? Double checking that our firearms are unloaded, that we put the ammo either in another room or in the car or wherever else it can possibly go so it's 100% away from the gun. so that we can be totally safe as we do our dry fires. And they said, you know, do whatever dry fire you can, because come tomorrow, we're going to go just as quick through all this information. If you felt overwhelmed today, don't worry. When you come back tomorrow, you're going to feel equally overwhelmed. And that's pretty much what they emphasized. So it was a fun day on our first day at Front Sight, that first day of shotgun training. I loved it. Day 2 was even more interesting and even more fun. Stick around for part 2. And again, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already to see some of those standalone videos where I'm going to go to the range and demonstrate some of these fun shotgun drills and fun shotgun tactics. I'm Lay Boy Scout. Once again, this is part 1 of my recap of the 2-day shotgun course that I took down at Front Sight. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon for part 2.